Hi, this is Curt and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
But let's go to Houston. This has been all over the news. The interesting part is only the firefighter EMS side of things, but this is the case where a male was tased, allegedly, although I think this is all on camera, right? And he was tased as police kneeled on him, right in the chest with the taser, and they put him in the car. Anyway, so a while after the fire department EMS arrives, and because we're not here talking about police issues, unless they mix with the fire, as you rightfully point out here, the firefighters. Now you're gonna have to clarify this. The way I read what happened is they transported him to the hospital, but at a BLS level, not with the paramedic, and he arrests. And they said, well, there should have been a paramedic, and the paramedic even's there saying, I wish I went. So I'm assuming that they didn't delay or not provide care. They just didn't send him ALS. That's probably has a much harder chance of winning on a discrimination claim. But nonetheless, that's the case. I find this case way more interesting for the reason you raised. Mm-hmm. We are starting to see, and I'll flip this back to you, starting to see, and that's the brilliance of what you do that nobody else does, is you're starting to find patterns, right? And trends, and we're able to jump ahead of them now on this show. The trend we're finding, we see this with ketamine and a bunch of other stuff, where firefighters are put in the position of having to assist the police in their efforts. And unfortunately, if their efforts are untoward in this case, or unconstitutional or illegal, the firefighters are brought into those suits, saying you were part of the institution that was, discriminating or whatever, trying to cause them harm. But talk about, because this is probably the most interesting thing today on the show, is the trend you're seeing. Yeah,
it's very troubling. And I did see it with ketamine. I think that was one of the things that brought it to my attention. But I have a category called assisting police, and it could be assisting police at a vehicle accident, assisting police at a EMS run, or just assisting police. But it's a category that I keep in the database, and I've got cases that go back to the 1800s. From my earliest case in the 1800s,
you don't look that old,
up until 2015, I've got a total of 8 lawsuits that involve us being sued when we're assisting the police. Okay, 8 cases over 150 years. Since 2016, and 2016 is the year that Michael Brown died, in Ferguson. Since that time, there's 73 cases. So again, I'm not a statistician, but it seems to me we weren't having nearly as many prior to that point. And since then, and whether or not the cases are the same cases are happening, but the plaintiff's attorneys are not naming firefighters and fire departments. And I think that's probably what it is. I think that now we're finding ourselves in the gun sights of plaintiff's attorneys. And when they're going after the police department and the fire department was on scene, they're throwing us in there as well. And why that's important is that I think our people need to understand that when you go to a scene and the police are apprehending someone, that is a high risk incident for purposes of liability. It may be not high risk in other ways, but it's high risk when it comes to you being sued. You need to be making sure that you're doing things right, and that you document that you've done things right. This is one of those areas that you have to be on your game. And if you're going to be doing things like sitting in the engine, you're the officer and you're sitting in the engine.
Not getting out.
Okay? Not getting out, and you're not documenting things properly, and you're not doing things by the book, you've got to realize that you may find yourself in federal court having to defend what you did.
Yeah. And I think it's easy for firefighters to get wrapped up in, they arrive on scene always late in the incident. What they're seeing is somebody on the ground or in handcuffs with a bunch of police, very agitated, right? They've arrived and their impression is defend the police, right? Because that's what we do. We're the same. They defend the police. So they buy into whatever the police, this is my theory, buy into whatever the police are saying and doing and directing, and we pick up their attitude. If the police are combative, we become combative. If the police are, dealing with these What's
contemptuous.
that?
Contemptuous is the word. When the cops are contemptuous toward the suspect,
we become that way.
And
you can't. You cannot get into it, as you're saying. And I think that people, and we have so many that we've done on the show, right? But you've got to have, I'm going to steal something you said a long time ago. We've got to meet with the police. We've got to have policies. We've got to put down the expectations. We've got to make it clear, while they may direct that we take them or don't, how we take the person, how we treat the person. We're not handcuffing them and putting them on their back with the handcuffs under them. We're not handcuffing them and putting them face down. We're not transporting them handcuffed without the police. These things have to be in policy, so the department's not buying into a widespread practice of this type of abuse. And so we make it clear, at least to the top police level, we're not participating in the arrest. We treat the person, that's it. But we're getting trapped into, and I understand how it happens, right? Based on what we arrive for and what we see.
Right.
But don't do it. Don't do it. And if people think something's wrong, say it. Right? No, I'm not going to transport him that way. And yes, this goes back to what you and your brother, right? We talk about police fire wars. I'm not going to transport him that way. You need to re-handcuff him. I'm not going to sedate him for you, right? That type of thing. Or no, we are going to take him ALS, or whatever it is. You've got to stand the ground, which is not easy to do when the police like this could turn around and make you the target. And I'm not characterizing all cops this way. I'm just recognizing the high tension scenes that we sometimes walk into, and we become part of it.
Yeah. And sometimes, those high tension scenes, the same officer on a different day might not be as agitated, as angry, and as hostile as he is on the day that you're dealing with them. So you've got to respect that. A lot of police departments during a chase, they don't want the officers that were involved in the actual chase being the ones to handle the suspect, because there's a prey drive that kicks in when you're pursuing someone. So there's a lot of things we need to bring our knowledge level up in this area. It is a major area of liability concern. And I would say if I've got 73 cases, I wouldn't be surprised if there's over 500 cases. I mean, I can't possibly enter every single case that happens. Right. I do as many as I can. But when I see 73 and compare that to 8 prior to 2016, there's probably, I would guess at least 500 cases out there. It's not just 73. It's representative of a trend.
Yeah. And I think it's funny, as some of the viewers know, we hold a conference in Oneida County in New York, central New York, every year. Last year we did police, fire, and EMS, who's in charge. This year, I think we'll do police putting EMS and fire in the line of fire, something like that, with focus on these cases and talk about what you should do.
Yeah, there's no shortage of them.